Welcome to Podchurch, friends. Just as a note this week, we want to make you aware of some background noise that you will hear on this recording. The background noise is good news and a sign of future-facing forward progress as the flat roof at the Connection Center is replaced. And so you will hear some banging and some thumping around, and also a little bit of the music choice of our roofing crew. So we hope that you don't mind our dust today as we improve our facilities for the life of our congregation. Lord of healing and mercy, remind us again of your power to heal our lives from fears and mistrust. Open our hearts to believe in your restorative power and your great compassion for us. Give us healing and make us agents of peace for you in this your world. Amen. A woman who had suffered a condition of hemorrhaging for 12 years, a long succession of physicians had treated her badly, taking all her money and leaving her worse off than before, had heard about Jesus. She slipped in from behind and touched his robe. She was thinking to herself, if I can put a finger on his robe, I can get well. The moment she did it, the flow of blood dried up. She could feel the change and knew her plague was over and done with. At the same moment, Jesus felt energy discharging from him. He turned around to the crowd and asked, "Who touched my robe?" His disciples said, "What are you talking about? With this crowd pushing and jostling you, you're asking who touched me? Dozens have touched you." But he went on asking, looking around to see who had done it. The woman, knowing what had happened, knowing she was the one, stepped up in fear and trembling, knelt before him, and gave him the whole story. Jesus said to her, "Daughter, you took a risk of faith, and now you're healed and whole. Live well, live blessed. Be healed of your plague."
We've been talking about resurrection stories this Easter season, but you may have noticed that last week we veered away from resurrection stories per se, that is, resurrection stories in the sense of Jesus resurrected after Easter morning. We heard the story of Jesus with the disciples on the road to Emmaus, and Jesus appearing behind closed doors in the upper room. But now we're moving into territory more familiar to our faith. Resurrection in an ongoing sense. Resurrection for others, not just Jesus. Resurrection for us. Is that even possible? Today's gospel story is one from before Easter, before Jesus was resurrected, which is most gospel stories, but it's still a story of resurrection in its way, which is also most gospel stories. This gospel story is actually a story within a story. Or, as Clifton Black from Princeton Theological Seminary says, a tale of two pities. Mark sandwiches one story, verses 24 to 34, inside another, verses 21 to 24, and then 35 to 43, and each story complements and amplifies the other. So our passage today is the middle of the sandwich. It's the peanut butter and the jelly, but not the Wonder Bread. There are two daughters in the story within a story. One an actual daughter in the offspring sense. One a daughter figuratively in the daughter of God, daughter of Israel sense. One is 12 years old. One has had a debilitating condition for 12 years. Both of their cases seem hopeless. One has spent all she had on ineffective treatments. One will soon be pronounced dead. Doctors have proven to be useless in both cases, and so have the professional mourners of Middle Eastern culture. Now, I'll advise you and suggest that it's worth checking out all of Mark chapter 5 when you get a chance. It's full of healings. That's where Mark seems to put them all. But before our passage today, the bread of this sandwich is that a man named Jairus, he's kind of on the leadership board of the local synagogue, has a daughter who is gravely ill. The Message Bible puts it this way, beginning with verse 21. After Jesus crossed over by boat, a large crowd met him at the seaside. One of the meeting place leaders named Jairus came. When he saw Jesus, he fell to his knees beside himself as he begged, "My dear daughter is at death's door. Come and lay hands on her so she will get well and live." Jesus went with him, the whole crowd tagging along, pushing and jostling him. But before he can get there, the other case of the woman with the bleeding condition appears. The part that was just read a few moments ago. Well, actually, it would be maybe more true to say the woman sort of sneaks in and she touches Jesus' robe from behind him because he is her last hope, like Princess Leia recording the message for Obi-Wan Kenobi and leaning over R2-D2 saying, "You're my only hope." This stops Jesus in his tracks. And once he figures out what has happened and for whom, he pauses to pronounce that she is healed. And it's really all to do with her faith. It has made her well, literally in Greek. She gets her life back, and that's kind of a resurrection for her. And yet the story continues, and as it does, it is evidence that Mark is a master storyteller, because this whole time, Jairus' daughter is hanging by a thread, while Jesus is on his way to heal that daughter, and the other daughter has made her crucial contact with Jesus, and that her healing has occurred, but it has delayed Jesus from getting to the younger girl, and the suspense is soon shattered by a terrible report. The girl has died. You're too late, Jesus. And we can't help but ask, what if he'd gotten there sooner? For the older woman, this had been going on for years, and yes, she's at the end of her rope and the end of Jesus' robe, pun intended, but would a few minutes, an hour, have changed anything for her? Maybe Jesus could have gotten to the little girl in time. It's just too late. Or is it? Sometimes it feels like we approach these kinds of gospel healing stories as foregone conclusions. Of course Jesus will save the day. Of course Jesus will heal the sick person or raise the dead person. And of course, it's not wrong to think that. But Mark isn't just preaching to the choir with this passage. It's full of suspense and surprise. We're not asked to just assume that everything will be fine. If we want, we can cut to the chase. Sure, it's all there in verses 35 and on. But Mark wants us to experience the story too. And as much as possible, not just be biblical spectators. Mark doesn't merely spin miracle stories. He hooks us into these characters' lives, creating within us the awful oscillation between fear and faith. It's a story that goes beyond just the miracle parts. It's a story that invites us to commiserate and not just jump to glib, pious platitudes that hurt more than they help to say. Things like, God doesn't give you more than you can handle, and God needed another angel in heaven. We're invited to identify with the woman who thought she would never be better, and with the father who thinks his daughter is dead, to voice the truth that faith isn't always easy, and before there is healing, sometimes there is suffering. Mark knows that trust in God comes hard. We grasp it, we lose it, we reach again, we trust, and after years of suffering, we are at our tether's end. The flame is snuffed out. If you want to know how hard faith is according to Mark, listen. Over a long night in Gethsemane, while Jesus prays for escape from the inescapable, or at 3 one afternoon on Golgotha, listen as he cries out in his abandonment by an apparently absent God. Mark wants us to know that he gets how hard it is to be a believer all the time, not just when things are going well. For us, and even for Jesus sometimes. But that doesn't mean there's no reason to have faith and hope for healing. The Message Bible again tells the rest of the story. While he was still talking, some people came from the leader's house and told him, "Your daughter is dead. Why bother the teacher anymore?" Jesus overheard what they were talking about and said to the leader, "Don't listen to them. Just trust me." He permitted no one to go in with him except Peter, James, and John. They entered the leader's house and pushed their way through the gossips, looking for a story and for neighbors bringing in casseroles. Jesus was abrupt. Why all this busybody grief and gossip? This child isn't dead. She's sleeping. Provoked to sarcasm, they told him he didn't know what he was talking about. But when he sent them all out, he took the child's father and mother along with his companion and entered the child's room. He clasped the girl's hand and said, "Talitha cum," which means, "Little girl, get up." At that, she was up and walking around. This little girl was 12 years of age. They, of course, were beside themselves with joy. Pause here, friends. Because when Jesus finally arrived at the house where the girl was, he took her by the hand and he whispered, this is the literal translation, "Arise, little lamb." That's what it means in Aramaic, the phrase that the statement is recorded in. And he did for that little girl exactly what his heavenly Father would do for him at Easter. Mark, writing in Greek in his gospel, uses the same verb for the little girl getting up, as if she's just been taking a nap, that he does for announcing that Jesus has been raised on Easter morning. There's a direct resurrection connection there. And the little girl's resurrection is a preview of Jesus' resurrection. And a heart-stoppingly wonderful reassurance of God's power to save, to heal, to raise up, to show that faith is not in vain and hope is never to be tossed away, no matter how long or how bad the bad parts of life become. No matter how wild and restless the seas of life get, as the hymn invites us to sing. It's interesting that faith itself is the healing in this story. And for us, belief that though it is not always easy or logical or even sensible, is worth it when Jesus shows up. And as we see in this sandwich of stories, it's never too late, and a little goes a long way, and healing will come.
We hope you're enjoying Podchurch. Please take a moment to subscribe to our channel and be notified each time there's a new video. To learn more about everything that's happening in and around Marquette Hope, check out our Facebook page. You can also get our newsletter on the Facebook as well. Podchurch is the weekly online worship of Marquette Hope, a United Methodist faith community located in Michigan's Upper Peninsula. Find us at facebook.com/mqthope, mqthope.com, and on